And as promised, joined by Ryan Ruocco, had the call last night of the play-by-play of the Yankee 13-4 win over the Detroit Tigers. And Ryan joins us here on Big Board Sports on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio in Albany. Good morning, Ryan. Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado. How are you?
What's going on, guys? How are you today?
We're doing good, man. We're doing good. I made a comment Monday that I felt when I heard the comments of Aaron Judge going, you know what, I'm not really producing as a number 3 hitter should produce. I kind of felt in my mind that if they did move him, he would be okay with that. And then last night they do it, and Girardi looked like a genius last night when Sanchez comes up in a 3 spot and slams a home run, 493 feet. Looked like he made the right call, huh, Ryan?
Oh, I'd say so. You know, and it's funny because we talked about it yesterday, and one of the things that Ken Singleton was pointing out is he said, look, you know, Sanchez is going good right now, right? You want him to get pitches to hit. You want him to do damage. And even though Judge is struggling, he protects Sanchez to a certain degree. So Sanchez is more likely to get some pitches to hit with Judge behind him, whereas in the other way, you know, Judge is struggling, so it doesn't, you know, necessarily matter what pitches he's getting to hit with Sanchez behind him. And then they can deal with Gary without that threat behind him. So it definitely worked out for one game for sure. And I think that, honestly, if you look at the way, if all healthy and all, you know, at their best, I think that Judge always probably would settle more in the 4 or the 5 spot in the lineup. It's just the way he was in the first half, especially comparatively to everybody else. He settled into that 3 spot. But I think it's a little more natural for him there in the order, and Gary right now is looking like he was last August.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Judge was good last night too, right? I mean, 1 for 1. He walked 3 times, and maybe the getting him to 4, Ryan, took a little pressure off him, cleared his mind a little bit. And then I thought Girardi, even though he's not going to admit he took him out because he wanted to kind of end this line of questioning and the 37 straight games with a strikeout that comes to an end last night, that Girardi makes the right move, getting him out of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with it because there's no reason to keep the mental inertia going of that streak. And at that point, he feels good about everything he did yesterday because of the 3 walks in which he took some close pitches, which is what he did the first half of the year, but he's been chasing of late. And then he rips that single to left field, and you think, okay, 1, he can use a little extra rest. 2, yeah, why not? End that streak now so that he's not going up to the plate thinking about it because, as we know, you know, these can become self-fulfilling prophecies, and you don't want him every time he has 2 strikes to be thinking, okay, well, now I'm about to, once again, you know, continue this streak. So I thought it made total sense to get him out of the game, and I'm sure it was at least part of the motivation there.
Ryan Ruocco with us here on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Of course, you hear Ryan, you see Ryan on the YES Network and on ESPN. And Ryan, we'll ask you about the big trade that went down in the NBA last night as well. But I would have never thought that after the Yankees made the deal they did with the White Sox, that we may sit here on August 23rd after a 13-run output and assume that maybe the biggest question mark around this Yankees team is the bullpen. How do you feel like that bullpen should be or will be managed here in the final month plus of the season?
Well, I think since their deals, the bullpen has performed incredibly well. They just have had a couple of high-profile losses, right? The one on Friday against the Red Sox when they were down, when they were up 6-3 and blew the lead. And I think actually I feel like that was a product of, you know, Chad Green sat for a long time in the 7th, and then when he came back out, wasn't necessarily as sharp and kind of had a quick hook. And Tommy Kahnle has struggled, gave it up there. So he would be a little concerned just because his struggles have been a bit extended now. And Chapman is a little concerned because Chapman obviously has not been able to produce the swings and misses that we're used to. But Robertson's been great. Betances has been great. Warren's been great. Green's been great. Shreve's even been good. So I think that if Kahnle can find it, Chapman can find it, yeah, of course, and the bullpen is just ridiculously stacked. But even if they are in a position where they're, you know, pitching in situations that aren't as high leverage as Betances or Robertson, I still think you have enough quality to get through it and feel good about yourself having a lead late in games.
We're talking Yankee baseball here this morning on Big Board Sports. We are the home of the Yankees on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Ryan Ruocco, Yes Network, ESPN play-by-play announcer, Yankees, Nets, NBA, and we'll get to that blockbuster. But one more on the Yankees, and that is Tanaka. Coming off the DL, maybe that was the break he needed. Looked pretty good last night, 7 strong. Do you think they could? You think they could get Tanaka back to pitching? Like maybe the ace of the staff that he really has not been this season?
I'd say yes, but I do still believe that Luis Severino is their ace now. He's delivered in prime time on big stage at tough ballparks. I know his last outing against Boston didn't go great, but he's been great at Fenway Park multiple times. He was great at Wrigley Field, and he also has that mentality. But the good news for Tanaka is even if you look at the 9 starts he had before he went on the DL, he had an ERA of 3 flat. So now you're talking about, after last night, a 10-start sample size where he has looked much more like himself than he did before. And the one number that's really changed, because he's been striking out guys all year, is the home run. He has really limited the long ball over that 10-start stretch. So if he can just keep the ball in the yard like that, then yes, I think if he's not, the ace, he's at least a guy you feel great about every time he takes the mound. But I still think if you had one game to win right now, you're pitching Luis Severino, and I don't see that changing.
Ryan, I'll ask you the poll question that we have right now up on our Twitter page, and that is, did the Kyrie Irving trade make the Celtics the favorite in the Eastern Conference? No.
In fact, I'm not sure it helps them for this particular season. And the reason is, that Celtic team had been very together for a long time. And part of their success was their cohesion. You are now going to try and integrate 2 new main pieces in Hayward and Irving and a ton of other, new either young pieces when you talk about Jason Tatum or ancillary pieces. And so I think that move is really more about what they think the high end can be moving forward rather than what it'll be this year, because I think it probably hurts their chances actually for this season because of what they're going to have to do on the fly and learn. And, they have maybe the best head coach, in the NBA, or if not the best, one of the top, 3 in Brad Stevens. But I still think it's going to take some time to learn that. And I actually think there's a chance that the Cavs are better now this year after that trade, because even though Thomas and Irving are not equals, and Irving is a much better shooter, so he can play off the ball more easily than Isaiah, Crowder is also a factor here, because that was exactly the kind of guy that the Cavs needed. And Thomas, we at least know, can proxy the scoring of Kyrie, and you feel basically the same about both of them on the defensive end. So I wouldn't be surprised. In the long run, I really like it. I really like it for both teams, actually. But I definitely really like it for Boston, and I understand the move. But I wouldn't be surprised if they are maybe they'll win similar amount of games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit worse, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs are actually a little bit better.
Ryan, so Kyrie gets his way. He says, I don't want to be in Cleveland anymore, trade me, and the Cavs do in fact do that, and I'm with you. I think got good return for a guy who said, I don't want to be here anymore. Carmelo Anthony doesn't want to be in New York. Do you see any way he gets moved before this season starts?
It's harder with him because he's a guy who's just not as valuable, right? And so his money is a little tougher to deal with. Plus, he does have, the no trade. I don't know. I think the Knicks would be motivated to move him because it does make sense for the future of their franchise. The problem is I just don't know where he goes, where the assets make sense. The Celtics were the one team in the league who had this unique combination of wanting to win now and being able to, while also having assets for the future. Houston's not that team. Houston, he may want to go to, but what does Houston have that helps a rebuild, if that's what you're looking for, if you're the Knicks? And so that's what makes it tough for me, is I think that the Knicks will be motivated to move him. I just am not sure they'll be able to.
By the way, if you want really good access to professional athletes, Ryan's podcast is at the top of that list. It's called R2C2. It's with CC Sabathia, and you can find it on the Players Tribune website. You can also just go to Ryan's Twitter page, at Ryan Ruocco, RUOCCO, and you can find the link there too. It's a terrific listen. CC's got great stories, and go all the way back to the Sue Bird podcast. That one is awesome. But Ryan,
thank you, man. Thank you very much.
You're in Detroit, and a lot of people would wonder, what does a play-by-play guy do all during the day when the games are at night? Apparently shop.
Well, yes, I'm shopping at this amazing store called Homage. What do we say? Homage, like Homage, you know?
Yeah.
HOMAGE. Yeah. Why? I'm in the business of speaking. Why are these words so difficult for me to pronounce? But it's an incredible store. It's got like the best vintage T-shirts you've ever seen and hoodies. I just happened to stumble across it. You feel like you walked into the 90s. And actually, I just found out, you know that Ultimate Warrior shirt that LeBron wore at the championship parade a couple years ago? He got it from here.
Wow.
It's amazing. So that's what you do. You go shopping in the coolest, vintage store you've ever seen. That's what you do.
Well, Ryan, enjoy a few hours of downtime before you crank it up again tonight. We appreciate a few minutes here on ESPN Radio in Albany, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
You got it, man. Thank you guys for having me.